Hey guys, it's Mr. V over here doing a book review today for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. Before I get into my book review, I want you to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so if you see me looking down, I just have notes, so I try not to give any spoilers away. So, let's get into the book review for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So, the main premise for this book is you're going to follow two people. They're heading to Vegas. One of them is a writer for a magazine, and they're covering a specific sporting event. But these two people have a ton of drugs, and they're going to be using the drugs throughout their Vegas trip. And you just follow them as they go throughout Vegas while covering that event. So that's the main premise for the book. Now, before considering this book, I would suggest that you definitely be over 18 to read the book. I would even suggest being over 21 to read the book. As you want to, I think you need to be over 21 to get the full enjoyment. And I would also say that you want to know Las Vegas. You want to have at least traveled there or done something with Las Vegas. And I think that will give you a better enjoyment. And I also want to give you a warning before starting this book is there are a lot of drugs talked about in this book. I mean, a lot. And you do not have to have taken drugs to enjoy the book. But it definitely helps knowing like how people act when they're on drugs or some of the side effects of drugs. Because again, there are a lot of drugs mentioned in the book. And one thing I would say, based off some of the reviews I saw, is if you don't want to hear about drugs or people taking drugs, then don't read the book. Just don't read the book because, again, there are so many drugs mentioned in this book that you just kind of have to go in with an open mind and know that drugs will be talked about a lot in the book. So that's why just go into the book with an open mind, and then I think you'll get a lot more enjoyment from the book. Now, as for the book itself, had kind of an odd beginning. And I think it had an odd beginning because you don't fully know what's going on. You know they're heading to Vegas, but you don't fully know what's going on. It's because they're high. They're on drugs, and that's why they're going through some pretty crazy things right from the beginning. And other weird things are happening because of their drug trips. And, that's why it's kind of an odd beginning. But it definitely becomes a fun story after it gets going. It takes a little bit, it's not too long. It takes a little bit to get going, but you can see the book's not that big. But it takes a few chapters to get going, and then it becomes a lot of fun. And I can definitely see why this was like a cult hit in the 1970s when it was released. And it was like a cult classic. And I can definitely see why. Because after it gets going, it is a lot of fun. And because it's fun seeing what happens, like what the main characters do, because they go through these crazy situations, and the characters are crazy. And it actually made me laugh many times, just because of the stuff they do, which is craziness. And you are always wondering, like, what will happen? Because they're tripping on drugs. So they're doing all these different types of drugs. They're doing uppers, downers, they're drinking with it. So you never know, like, oh, they're doing one specific drug. They're always changing up the type of drug they're doing. So they're doing all these crazy things. And there is literally, like, no way of knowing what will happen. Because you don't know if, like, they're somewhat sobered up or if it's a drug trip that they're on. And sometimes they seem somewhat sobered up, and then they just launch into this crazy drug trip. And that's why it's like there's no way to know what will happen. And the craziness, the situations they go through is definitely very entertaining. And again, that's why I say there's no way to know what's going to happen. But I think that's one thing that makes it a lot of fun. Because you don't know what's going to happen, and the situations they get themselves in are just complete craziness. And I would say that this book was very fun despite the drugs. Yes, you don't want people using drugs, and this book kind of like makes it like seem like it's very fun. But I would say that they got themselves into like funny situations and interesting situations, and I felt that it wasn't just about like the book is not just about drugs and getting high. It's an entertaining book for other reasons. And one thing I think that helped in this book was that this book had definitely some I'm trying to find one right now, but it had some pictures in the book that definitely helps. Like you can see some of these pictures that they draw in the book, so you can kind of see what they are seeing on their drug trip, which is why I say you don't have to do drugs or have done drugs to kind of know what they're seeing. Is like, look how crazy this looks, like this picture looks. So you can kind of see what they are going through. And I think that helped in the book to see the different pictures, because it was a lot of fun seeing that, so you can see, oh, that's what you guys are talking about, and that's what you guys are seeing. Now, some of the things I did not like about the book, or I'd say like are the negatives about the book, is that it took a few chapters for the book to get going, and the first few chapters were a bit rough for me. It was a little bit rough. And what happened, what I did, is after I got to about chapter 5, it was about 40 pages into the book, after I knew what was going on and the book was starting to get going, I went back and I just restarted the book, and then it made the book way better. But, you know, that can kind of be seen as a negative, that you have to, like, restart the book after, like, a certain chapter, and then you get even a better enjoyment. But I felt like, that's just me personally. I went back and I restarted it after, like, chapter 5. And then it was way better, because then you know exactly what's going on. You know who the characters are, and you could see, like, it makes a lot more sense to me. So, you know, that's something you can decide if you want to do or not, but it's something that made me enjoy the book a lot more. Now, as for the writing, I thought he had an interesting writing style. You know, it was still well written, but it was a very interesting writing style, because he's having to describe, like, what's going on from sometimes a third-person perspective, sometimes from a first-person perspective, but it's like the drug trips. He's having to kind of describe all that. That's why it's like a very interesting writing style, and that sometimes you like semi know what's going on, and other times you don't fully know what's going on, because there's a lot of unknown, because it's similar to a drug trip. Like, they are tripping on drugs, so it's like you don't fully know everything that's going on yet. And I think that he did an amazing job describing it, and just you can kind of, you know, like, you feel like you're going through it with them. And I'd say the pictures helped, but you kind of feel like they're going through it, like you're going through it with them, because of how he wrote it. And that's why I thought he still did a good job writing it. It was a very interesting style of writing, but he definitely did a good job writing it. And they're very short chapters, so it's very easy just to pick up, read a few chapters, and it was very easy to go through this book. So, you know, I still, like, I enjoyed the book. It didn't take too long to read, and I enjoyed it. Now I'm going to give it my official rating. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being an awful book, a 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it's anywhere near 10, put that on your reading list, because I'm a very tough critic, and a 5 is average. So for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson, I'm going to rate this book a 7, which is a pretty solid rating for me. But I'm rating it a 7 just because it was definitely an interesting read. It was a very fun read. And to me, it was an easy read. Like, it was just easy going in, and you kind of have to just go in with an open mind. If you go in with an open mind, I think you will really enjoy the book. And, you know, again, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, you know, I'm giving a pretty solid rating. But if you guys have any comments, questions, anything like that, please post it in the comment section below. Hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different types of book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.